Most churches today are recognizing the importance of preparedness and safety ministries. But many leaders are asking an important question. Where do we begin? Today's conversation focuses on building church security ministries the right way through leadership, stewardship, servant hearted volunteers, and practical preparedness that supports ministry rather than distracts from it. I want to welcome you to the Faith Secure podcast, where we are watchful, prayerful, and prepared. I'm your host, Dr. Michael Brown, and today's guest is Mr. Paul D'Annunzio, founder and CEO of Chapel Security Solutions, and a leader focused on helping houses of worship build security ministries that reflect both biblical values and professional preparedness standards. Our conversation today focuses on leadership, stewardship, volunteer security ministries, preparedness cultures, and how churches can strengthen safety while remaining mission focused. I want to welcome Paul to the podcast today. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Michael. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, how you doing?
Our conversation. I'm doing great. Yeah.
Okay. Good deal. We're going to dive right in, sir, okay?
Let's do it.
Our first segment is going to deal with why churches need preparedness ministries, okay? So the first question I have for you, Paul, is why do you believe church preparedness and security ministries are increasingly important today?
So, I've spent 27 years in law enforcement, and it seems to me that violence is increasing, especially when you're dealing with houses of worship, which basically are soft targets. And that
Yes.
I think there's really two. I think there's really two reasons why. One is certainly the mental health crisis in this country. There's a lot of people that seem to need help, and unfortunately, for whatever reason I'm not aware of, they're not getting the right help that they need.
Right.
And it seems to me that it ends up becoming a violent situation. And you can see it all over the news all the time. And then my other thing is, a lot of these churches, they don't have security programs, or if they do, they're not well done.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Let me back it up. Seeing that everything that's happening in the news, why do some churches still hesitate to address security?
Yeah, so I think a lot of churches have a misconception of what church security should be. I think a lot of pastors and religious leaders kind of look at it as, a bunch of bearded, big, strong goon guys standing out front, with M4s or something, like
right.
that. And that's not what it is at all.
Right.
So, and they kind of have like this, oh, well, it's not going to happen to me sort of attitude. And, I live in Charleston, and, we had an unfortunate circumstance a few years ago.
Absolutely.
And it can happen. We all pray that it doesn't, but it can happen. The threat is there. And then I think the other issue is financial. I think that many churches, whether it's pastors or church boards or whoever the leadership is, they don't seem to want to spend money or any finances towards security. And I know I've thought about this and talked about this with others. It doesn't take that much just to get a good basic program going.
Right. And I share that with churches when I go and consult, is that a lot of the measures are little to no cost that you can put in place, a lot of them. But I also tell them that preparedness is stewardship, and it's not fear. So that's what we're working with. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So now this segment, we're going to shift a little bit. I'm going to bowl down your alley, Paul. This is going to deal with building the church security ministry the right way. So you're going to walk us through this, okay? So what are some of the first things churches should understand before forming a security team?
Well, the first thing they need to know is what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses? And really the only way to get a determination on that is to have someone come by and do an assessment, right?
Absolutely.
So you need some sort of professional, somebody knows what they're doing, to do a security assessment. Okay. After that, then we can start talking about making specific plans, right? So you can make like emergency plans that'll cover medical emergencies, that'll cover, some sort of physical emergencies, criminal emergencies, weather, emergencies. So you have a whole gambit of stuff where you can actually sit there and plan, write down policy, and then we can start talking about, let's get a team together. Because if you just get a team together with no plans, no policies, it's like a bunch of 7-year-olds playing G.I. Joe in the backyard. I mean, we're just making this thing up as we go along, and that's and that's not the way to run something that's going to be effective.
As important as that is as well. So, what other mistakes do churches commonly make when they're starting security teams?
Well, I think a lot of times what they'll do is, aside from the not having policy or SOP or whatever you want to call it, aside from that, they'll end up grabbing somebody that's former law enforcement or former military, and they just kind of just leave it up to them. And the issue with that is, hey, listen, you could hit it out of the park with a home run and get a great guy, or you're going to get someone that has a law enforcement mindset and they're not able to kind of convert that mindset to a house of worship mindset, right? Which is more of like a customer service type of thing. And the same thing with military. I mean, you can get a military guy, but what does he know? As far as security goes. Right. I mean, he's great with a gun, I'm sure, but not every church needs that, and that's not the way to run a welcoming environment where you have professional security, right? And you can make a volunteer security team be professional.
Absolutely. So now, having said that, on the practical side, what foundational elements should every church security ministry have?
Okay, so foundationally, again, I go back to the plans, right? We have our plans, we have our SOPs, we have our policies, and then what we need to do is do training. So once we figure out, let me back up. Once we figure out who's going to be on our team, right? So there should be background checks on them. There should be an interview to find out where their mindset is at. Once we've established that team, now we have to have training, because without training, how do you expect someone to actually perform when they're stressed, right? So a lot of people will go out and they'll ask me, hey, I want to buy a gun. I want to carry a gun. I'm like, hey, that's great. That's your right to do that. But you need to train. Wait, what do you mean? Yeah, you have to train with that gun, because you think that just, God forbid, the worst scenario in the world happens to you and you pull it out and you have no idea how to use it, or you've never done it before. It's not the movies, You're not just going to automatically, you're not going to automatically be like, Annie Oakley, So, I mean, you got to train. So it's the same thing with the security teams. They have to go through these scenarios. They have to know what each person in the team is responsible for doing and work as a team. And the only way to do that is through training.
Right. And that's the adage that I share when I'm talking to churches is, if you're going to fall back to your level of training, if you train well, you're going to perform well typically. If you 100%. Don't train well, you're not going to perform well. It's really a simple concept. So, it
really is. Yeah,
it is. So let me ask you this. So how should churches think about selecting and developing the volunteers that will be in the security ministry?
So what I like to advise is let's pick people that are from different walks of life. Let's choose people that are calm, are able to talk to people in a polite and meaningful manner. I don't necessarily, again, I go back to the big strong guy. I don't necessarily want that guy, but I may. It just it depends, it depends. And really where it starts is with if you have a traffic team, It would start there, right? And we want to have people out there that are able physically to be out there, in the heat, in the cold. Okay. I'm not going to pick, the 82-year-old gentleman that's, he's not going out there, right? That's just a bad idea.
Right.
Okay. No matter how much he may want to, right? He's not. Okay?
Right.
So you have to be selective in who you're choosing for what roles. Now, if I'm going to have a team that has, let's say, 2 guys or girls carrying a firearm, right? Now I have to look at that person. What kind of experience does that person have with firearms?
Right.
How much training does that person have? So each quality is going to be something different. If I have a greeter, I want a greeter, whether it's a man or a woman, I want that greeter to be friendly, to be able to, pick out body language and know, like, maybe I should start a conversation with this person and see what's going on.
Right.
So you're looking at different characteristics of people. And then when you're choosing a leader, you want to have someone that's a good leader, someone that's managed teams before, someone that has that experience.
Okay. And now, having said that, it's going to be a 2-part question. Do you believe that the security ministry should reflect the culture of the church? And if so, why?
Well, yeah, I mean, it definitely should, because, you're serving your home. I mean, this is God's house. It's your home. Right. Okay. So it needs to reflect the people that are there, and the community around it too.
That's a good point.
Because you have certain communities that look upon security in different ways.
Right.
Okay. So, for example, here in Charleston, if you're in the Mount Pleasant area, okay, they have big mega churches. Okay, they have a lot of security, right? Professional, very, very well done security. Now you go into other areas of Charleston, like North Charleston, where economically it's a challenged area. You have churches that don't have the money to do this, okay, and they don't even have that many people attending their church. So you have 30, 40 people attending their church. It changes the whole dynamics of your security team, as it would, with some of these, what they call mega churches, right?
Right.
So when you're filling your church up and are creating your security team, you have to take all of that stuff into consideration. Okay, you have to take into consideration not only the community that you serve, but also the folks that you have that is part of your congregation.
Right. Okay. Now, having said that, what does a healthy church security culture look like?
So I think a healthy culture, it kind of involves a lot of people. Some folks will sit there and say, oh, well, we have a security team. We've got, 5 people on our security team, let's say. Okay, cool. Are the parking attendants involved in that? No. Well, they should be. Are the greeters involved in that? No. Well, they should be. Are the ushers involved in that? No. Well, they should be. Is the pastor involved in that? No. Well, it should be. Right. So all of these people need to play a role in this, right? It's not just the 4 or 5 guys that you've got, in strategic spots inside the church.
Right.
It's everyone, because the threat, right? If we're talking about a threat, the threat is going to show itself to the traffic people first. Then it's going to show itself to the greeters. If you have greeters at the front door, then it's going to show itself to the ushers, right?
Yes.
So we, I like to really preach a lot about prevention. So if we're able to stop the threat outside the doors and not let that threat get inside, we've actually done a huge help to securing our church, right?
Yes.
So if traffic people or the greeters outside the door can stop that before security, and of course you'd want to have equipped with radios, some sort of radio system.
Yes.
Yeah. So that because ideally the way I like to set it up is, and a lot of churches don't do this, and it drives me crazy. But I'd like to have a greeter outside the doors of the church the entire service.
Okay.
From before,
Mm-hmm.
as folks are coming in,
Right.
and as the service is going on, there should be a greeter outside those two closed front doors. Okay. And the reason for that is because while the services are going on, a lot of times what churches do is the greeter goes inside
Yep.
and takes part in the service. And it's like,
Yes.
okay, well, if I were a bad guy,
Right.
I'm
Right.
paying attention to this.
Absolutely.
So there needs to be someone out there so that, okay, let's say, somebody comes up in August, right? The middle of the heat in August, and they're wearing a long trench coat,
Right.
kind of looking down, looking weird, and is walking up to those front doors. Well, the greeter can intercept that person, right?
That's right.
Go on comms, say, hey, I have a person possibly suspicious. I'm going to go start a conversation. So now all the security people know what's going on.
They're on alert.
And they're on alert. They can send someone out there. They can lock the door, right? That should be an automatic thing. When the greeter says, hey, I got somebody, boom, that door should be locked.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And now once you clear it up, okay, everything's good, But again, if you don't have that person out there, you lost half the battle.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Okay, we're going to pivot now and touch on something you mentioned earlier about policies, training, and leadership responsibility. So I'm going to start you off with this question. What role do training and policies play in creating effective preparedness ministries?
Yeah,
now, you spoke to this already, but
I did. Well, but it's good that we bring it back because it's incredibly important. And I think
it bears repeating.
A lot of it does. And I think a lot of houses of worship kind of skip over this, or they don't take it as seriously as they should.
Right.
And when you're looking at policy, so policy does two things for you, right? It establishes your expectations for the security team. Okay.
Right.
And then it also protects you with lawsuits. Okay. So now if you have something and if anyone in the audience is former law enforcement or is in law enforcement, they understand this liability stuff, right? Because we're always thinking about what we're doing and it's going to bite us later on. Right.
Right.
So the churches need to understand this as well. Right.
Absolutely.
Now, if I don't train any of my security personnel and somebody comes into the church yelling and screaming and just being disorderly, not hurting anybody, but just yelling and screaming, being disorderly. Now I got two beefy dudes that jump on him and, he ends up breaking his arm or something like that. Right.
Right.
So they're going to get sued and they're going to go to court. Right. And the defense attorney is going to be like, oh, well, what kind of training did you have?
Absolutely.
So it is incredibly important for legal reasons and I believe ethical reasons too. I mean, you should be well trained because I don't want to hurt anybody.
No,
I don't want, and no one does. But what happens is when you're not trained, you don't know what to do.
That's
you
right.
Panic, and then you go overboard.
Yep.
Right. So the intention was not to, but without the training, again, go back to that firearm example. If you're carrying a firearm and you've never shot one before, how do you expect to be successful under stressful conditions when you have to deploy it? And that's the same thing with anything, right? So I can't express enough to protect yourself, set expectations with planning, and then actually train that, with your team so that it's kind of, it's already happened, right? So hopefully they've done it enough that muscle memory kicks in and they're just doing it successfully.
Right. Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Should churches coordinate with local law enforcement and emergency responders? Of course, I know the answer to this question, but this is for the viewers. Okay.
Yeah.
Should churches coordinate with local law enforcement and emergency responders? If so, why?
I mean, absolutely, they should. There's a couple of reasons why. One, you should have a great relationship with law enforcement, with EMS, with fire.
Right.
Just for general purposes, you should have a good relationship with all three of those services. And then the other reason too is, if a lot of these churches that don't have money, there are ways of getting money, but that don't have the resources, maybe they have an older congregation.
Right.
If they have a good relationship with law enforcement will be like, hey, we can send over a car, an officer can be in front, while church is going on. You can make arrangements like that with these relationships.
Absolutely.
It's all part of this. Yeah. And it's part of this community policing stuff that I think is great. And you establish these good relationships with them, and police officers are going to help you. They want to, especially in faith-based communities, because they understand that you're a soft target, and they get that, and they want to protect that. So,
and
yes.
And it's partially human nature as well too, Paul. You tend to want to help people you have a good relationship with. I mean, that's human nature. So
of course. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we're going to pivot here, Paul. I'm going to test your mettle, okay? I'm going to give you a scenario, okay? And then ask you a couple of follow-up questions. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. A growing church wants to create a volunteer security ministry, but leadership is concerned about balancing preparedness with maintaining a welcoming worship environment. The classic scenario. Okay. How should leadership approach this?
So I think what the first thing leadership needs to do is they need to sit down with a professional team.
Okay.
Right? So let's look at, what's the crime stats around the church? What's how there any history of things happening to the church? And once we get the answers to that stuff, we do our security assessment of the physical church itself. And then I can explain to them, we can go this route, and we can go, the more expensive route, let's say.
Right.
And this and the simple route, the route that will put your foot in the door, let's say, is getting volunteers, having a plan when something looks suspicious or something they think may be happening, right? You have a person that's going to call 911. It's going to explain things. You have a person that's going to make contact, that's going to start interviewing the individual, right? So just having an idea of what to do and practicing that costs nothing. Costs absolutely nothing.
Right.
And you can do this, okay, maybe you don't have the people that would be able to physically remove somebody, if someone came into the church and started breaking things.
Right.
But what you would have is that you would have a recording of it, because I'm going to have person A pull out their cell phone and record everything. I'm going to have person B make contact and speak to the person. I'm going to have person C help escort folks out of the church if necessary. You know? So everyone kind of knows what their role is and what they're doing, and I haven't spent $1 yet.
That's right. Well, let me ask you this: how can churches introduce preparedness positively to the congregation?
Well, I think that what they could do is they could just talk about safety and security with the congregation and express how important that is to the church itself. They can also talk about how it is I think a biblical responsibility. I think it is a human responsibility to keep everyone safe. When you're in church, I know when I'm in church, it's really one of the only places where I actually let my guard down, and I'm able to really clear my mind. Now, I want to do that in a safe environment, right?
Absolutely.
Because one of the things, being a cop for 27 years, my head is always I'm always looking around, looking at things. I'm always on the swivel. Yeah, always. And
Yes.
that's really the only place where I get some peace.
Yeah.
And you're vulnerable. You are
Yes.
vulnerable at that point. And I think pastors would have to express that this is part of the responsibility of being a pastor is protecting their flock.
Absolutely.
So I think just speaking with people and just having a conversation
Right.
would be the way to express this, to
I
everybody.
agree.
And I don't see anyone that wouldn't be on board with that.
I agree. That's very good. Very well said. All right, we're going to go to the close, okay, here, Paul, and I will close
Okay.
you out with a reflection question and then one follow-up. What
Okay.
encouragement would you give pastors and church leaders who know preparedness matters, but they feel uncertain about where to begin? And I know you touched on it earlier, but again, it bears reiteration. So, what encouragement would you give them?
So I would just encourage them, just kind of bring them back to, because I understand that pastors have a responsibility, and their responsibility is, preaching the word.
Right.
And the same thing goes for a synagogue and a mosque. I get
Right.
it. Their mind is not security first, right? That's my mind, right?
Right.
So
Right.
use me. Let me use my talents. I don't have that many talents, Dr. Michael, but I got that, right?
Right. Right.
So let me use these talents to help you make a safe environment for the congregation. Okay, because that is your responsibility, right? On top of saving my soul, it's also saving my flesh.
Right.
And find the people that are the experts at that and let them help. And that would really be my, maybe it's a little too forward, but that would be my expression.
That sounded good. That sounded good to me. And the last follow-up I'm going to ask you is, what does a healthy let me rephrase that. What does healthy preparedness look like in a ministry environment? I know that's a broad question, but just give me your take on what that healthy preparedness looks like.
So I think the way it would look was, again, we go back to, getting someone professionally to come in and do a security assessment, help put together well-written plans, well-written SOPs, and then putting together a thoughtful team, right? That represents your church, and then training them and making sure that not just one 2-week training session or something like that.
Right.
They need to train monthly. It is really what I suggest. Every month they should be training something. Whether it's sitting in the classroom talking about de-escalation or looking at whatever. And there should also be some tabletop exercises. There should be live scenarios going on in the church you work in, right?
Yes.
So and that doesn't have to happen all the time, but you need to do that at least twice a year. And you're going to introduce different scenarios, So without doing all of that, I don't think that you'll have a healthy program. I think you can have maybe like a community watch type thing where, someone calls police, but to have a security team that's able to take action, the training and the policies and the SOPs are standard. You have to have that.
Got to have it. Okay. All right. Well, Paul, I want you to just hang out with me while I close real quick. Folks, I just want to leave you with this takeaway. Preparedness is not about creating fear or turning churches into fortresses. That's not the conversation that Paul and I are having today. It's about stewardship, leadership, and creating environments where people can worship, serve, and gather safely while supporting the ministry and the mission of the church. I want to thank Paul for coming on the podcast and sharing his expertise. Outstanding job, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Michael. It was a pleasure being here, and I had so much fun speaking with you.
Same here. Just stick with me for one more second while I finish
Sure.
closing, okay? I want to thank you, the viewers. for coming and spending time with us. If you want more information about this topic or any other security related matter, please visit us at mdbconsultingagency.com/Faith Secure and schedule a free 30-minute church security consultation. Until the next episode, always remember to be watchful, prayerful, and prepared. God bless you.